Where should I take my retirement income from first? That's what we're going to look at today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. We're going to look at two distinct scenarios, one for a single person, one for a married couple. We're going to dive into the software. We're going to look at, does it make sense to take Social Security first? Does it make sense to take our retirement investments first? What does that look like on a holistic plan with taxes, inflation, rates of return on our market investments? We're going to look at it all so that you can determine for yourself, and if you need help, where should you take your retirement income first? You ready to jump in? Let's go. All right, there's really two main factors you need to consider first before you start thinking about where am I going to take my retirement income from first, especially if you're thinking, can I retire at 60? Can I retire at 55? Where does my retirement income need to come from? Well, there's two main sources of retirement income, and we're not going to look at pensions today because pensions are not the majority of what I see for my clients. Now, maybe you work for the city, the state, the Fed, maybe you worked for the military. Thank you so much for your service. And because of that, you get a pension. Well, you have a leg up on the rest of us working folk who don't get pensions. But let's focus on the two other areas of where retirement income would come from. Well, the first area is Social Security. Keep in mind, Social Security is your main source of retirement income, not necessarily the main source of your retirement expenses or where your money is going to go for your retirement expenses, but it is a guaranteed source of income. It has a COLA increase, and it's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Now, I know that there's some issues that Social Security is having that need to be addressed, and I don't want to go through that in this video because that's not the purpose of my channel. I want to help you get to retirement, through retirement, and protect your ability to stay in retirement. So let's look at Social Security as it is right now, and we'll have a plan for what happens if benefits are lowered in the future. So at the current moment, if you were born after the year 1960, you have the choice to start taking Social Security at 62. If you take Social Security at 62, you're going to get 70% of your full retirement benefit. If you decide to take Social Security at 67, which would be your full retirement age, you're going to get 100% of your full retirement benefit. And if you're an overachiever, a broccoli eater, if it makes sense for your retirement income plan, and you decide to take Social Security at 70, you're going to get 124% of your full retirement benefit. So when we're thinking about where should I take my retirement income from first, when we retire and when we claim Social Security should be the first decision that we make on this journey. If I retire at 55, I've got 7 years before I'm first eligible to start collecting Social Security, or I've got 12 years before I get to full retirement age, 15 years until I get to 70. So it's really a factor that you need to consider, not just I'll think about it when I get to retirement, I'll just claim it whenever. No, it needs to be a strategic decision optimized for your plan, whether you're single or married. And you also want to consider a couple things. If you're married, you want to think about spousal benefits. Maybe you had a spouse that stayed home with the children, or just didn't work a job that made as much as yours. Maybe you had a spouse that worked part-time. Maybe you had a spouse that, again, stayed home with kids. My wife is a homeschool mom. She homeschools our 3 children. And so her income, whether you can't really see it because she's not getting a W-2 necessarily, she may apply for spousal benefits later in life because she's not necessarily paying into the Social Security system. Another thing we want to think about is divorced spousal Social Security benefits. If you are an ex-spouse, you may have the ability to claim Social Security based off of your ex-spouse. If you guys were married for 10 years or longer, you are no longer married to them or remarried, okay? Now, they can be remarried, that's no problem, but as long as you're not remarried, you may be able to claim up to half of their Social Security benefit at your full retirement age, at 67. They don't have to be claiming yet either. So divorced Social Security benefits are something we really have to think about when we're claiming Social Security benefits. Now, the second area we want to talk about is retirement investments. So Social Security is the first decision we got to think about. Retirement investments are the second decision. And the reason we want to think about our retirement investments is because of tax qualifications. How you get your retirement income in retirement is based on the taxes that you will receive or that you will owe once you receive that retirement income. For instance, if you take money out of your 401k or your IRA, for the most part, that is pre-tax money, meaning you have not paid taxes on it yet. Taxes have been deferred. You've been putting money into your 401k, into your IRA, and that income has been deferred for that time frame. Now, a Roth IRA is tax-free. When you pull money out of it, it is completely tax-free 99% of the time. And a non-qualified account, maybe just a traditional brokerage account, when you put money into that, you pay capital gains, dividends, and interest every year, but you can pull that money out at any time you want. Now, you will pay capital gains if you have a gain. You'll have a capital loss. If you have a stock loss and you sell that, you can write that off. So the way everything is taxed is also determined when are we going to pull that money out. Keep in mind, if you have a 401k and you are under the age of 59 and a half, if you go to take retirement income out of that under the age of 59 and a half, you will pay a 10% penalty unless you qualify for the rule of 55. Now, the rule of 55 says this: if you have a current 401k at your job and you leave your job, that current job, in the year you turn 55 or later, and you leave your 401k intact, if your plan admin allows it, you can use your 401k for retirement income without paying the 10% penalty. Now, you still pay taxes, but you don't pay the 10% penalty. That's the rule of 55. With an IRA, you have what they call a 72T. If you're under the age of 59 and a half, if you're thinking, hey, I want to do retirement planning at 50, can I retire at 55? And most of your money's in an IRA, you can set up a 72T. A 72T is taking substantially equal periodic payments from your IRA. There's a set schedule. There's 3 of them that the IRS designates that you can use for a 72T. And you have to take payments for 5 years or age 59 and a half, whichever is longer, okay? So if you retire at 50 and you're using your IRA as a 72T, you got to take payments until 59 and a half, 9 years. But if you're 57, what's that? 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, okay? So you want to understand the rules to this. That's why tax classification is so important when we're thinking about where are we going to take our retirement income from first. And what I always tell people, this non-qualified, this brokerage account right here, I call this a freedom fund. The freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom to invest and to use your investments for retirement income in any way that you want at any time you want. No IRS agent is going to tell you, you can't take money out of your brokerage account at 49. You can't take money out of your brokerage account at 58. You can't take money out of your brokerage account at 63. You're required to take money out of your brokerage account at 73. No. It's a freedom fund. It's a way to grow your retirement assets and have the freedom to use that retirement income for whatever you want. All right, you ready to get into the strategies? 2 strategies, single and married. Where should I take my retirement income from first? All right, where should I take my retirement income first? Can I retire at 60? That's what we're going to look at today. We have a single individual. Her name is Ruth. She's from Georgia. She's asking the question, can I retire, and where should my retirement income come from first? You ready? Let's go to the software. So here's what we've got. We've got Ruth, and Ruth is a nurse, but she is retired, okay? So she has the ability, if she wants to go back to work or to volunteer or to work part-time or whatever. Now, we're looking at taking Social Security at 67. Now, the question that we're asking is, where should I take my retirement income first? So if she's going to retire at 60, we're going to be using her retirement investments first, Social Security second. Now we're going to look at flipping that and seeing what makes the most sense. So you've got both these factors working. So let's look at retirement investments first. Now, from an asset standpoint, she has $450,000. Now let me show you how this is broken down. We've got a traditional IRA for $185,000. We have a non-qualified account, that's that freedom fund we were just talking about, of $25,000. We have a Roth 401k of $15,000. We have a Roth IRA of $175,000, and we have a bank account of $50,000. So we talked about tax qualifications or tax classification, how investments are taxed when you pull the money out. So for her traditional IRA, she's going to pay taxes on the money as she pulls that out. So immediately when that comes out, dollar for dollar, there's taxes on that money. For her non-qualified account, it's based on the cost basis of the stocks, mutual funds, ETFs that she is invested in, and the dividends and the interest. The Roth 401k and the Roth IRA are both tax-free. So we've got $190,000 here of tax-free retirement income coming sometime. And then we have 1099 interest on the bank, which is very low taxes right now because interest in a bank, for her, we're looking at about 2%. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways she's going to be taxed on her retirement income. So when you're asking the question, where should I take my retirement income first, taxes have to be something we think about. Another reason why we want to think about that is this. So Ruth is single, okay? Her IRA is the only pre-tax money she has. So we don't have another 401k or 403b or anything like that. When Ruth gets to age 73, 74, 75, she's going to have to start taking a required minimum distribution. A required minimum distribution is simply a requirement that the IRS says, hey, once you reach a certain age, you got to start taking a distribution out of your IRA. It's going to start at this percentage and it's going to go up as you get older. Now, for Ruth, we're in a lower tax code at the current moment. So the question becomes, does it make the most sense to start pulling money out of our IRA first from a tax standpoint and let this non-qualified and this tax-free money defer and grow so that when we're later in life, we're using a Roth IRA and we're using more tax-efficient money, right? Money coming out of a non-qualified or brokerage account is taxed more efficiently than money coming out of an IRA. That's ordinary income. And so, again, there's Social Security taxes once we're on that. So there's a lot to be considered just in how our assets are tax qualified when we're going to pull those out, okay? And I'll show you all that here in just a second. So Ruth has a home. Her home's worth $250,000 and it's paid off, okay? And we're going to look at a portfolio weighted average of about 3.78 for her investment. So basically what that means is the money that's in the market is going to earn 4% a year and we're going to earn 2% at the bank, okay? And that's going to give us 3.78. I'm going to go low on some of these projections because I've noticed in the comment section that you guys like lower projections. When I do 6%, you're like, oh my gosh, Drew, 6% is never going to work. Let's look at 4% because that's going to be a very low rate of return. And let's just see what that looks like. Now, if we get 5 or 6% going forward, listen, we high five and chest bump and we'll go through all that. Okay? So let's go to expenses and then I want to skip over to taxes because that's the main thing. Now, from an expense standpoint, and I lied, she does have a mortgage, $1,200. I misspoke, forgot. That's the next scenario we have. The married couple, they don't have a mortgage. So baseline expenses, $2,800. The mortgage is $1,200. Now here's what I want you to notice. The mortgage has a 0% inflation rate on it, okay? So $4,000 in expenses, our average inflation rate is 2.29%. Now you can see where the inflation rate is 3.27 on the baseline expenses. The 3.27% is the year-over-year CPI number. But your mortgage doesn't have inflation on it, right? Your mortgage is $1,200, it's $1,200, it's $1,200. So her average inflation rate is actually 2.29, which is lower than the average inflation rate for all other goods and services when you're trying to calculate inflation, like CPI readings. The Consumer Price Index is how the Fed measures inflation. So when you're doing your retirement plan, you want to make sure that you've broken out the appropriate inflation figures for your expenses. I just did a video recently for a client who has higher healthcare costs. He has a chronic health condition. So we have health insurance and then health, the gear that you need for his care, like the medical supplies. And so the inflation on that, his prescriptions and his the medical supplies, is actually around 6 or 7%, where inflation's at 3. So we calculated that in. So again, we want to make sure that we are calculating inflation for ourselves individually and as our family, and not just looking at it as a holistic standpoint. Because listen, God's greatest gift outside of Jesus is compound interest. That's how it works in the market. Inflation is the negative side of compound interest, because it's going to cause your purchasing power to go down. $1 today is worth less than $1 tomorrow, right? Okay, so let's go to taxes, because we're asking the question, where should we take our retirement income from first? So let's go to the year 2024. So here's what we've got. So with her expenses, we're going to be pulling money out of, you see this taxable withdrawals, $55,235. Now, where's all that money coming from? It's all coming out of her IRA. Why are you taking it out of her IRA? Well, that's the first bucket. But look at what it does tax-wise. So you see how these are our tax brackets. Her projected effective federal rate is 8.65%. She's in the 12% tax bracket. But once you go through deductions and you go through our bases, because we have a progressive tax code, she's actually in the 8.65% tax bracket. So she's actually in a really good place right now. Now keep in mind that taxes are going to go up. Oops, let's go to the next one. The taxes are going to go up in the year 2026. And let's just say they go up 25%, okay? So remember this 8.65 number right there. Let's go to 2026. Now we go up to 11.2. You see how she switched brackets? Now she's in the 27.5% bracket, but her effective federal tax rate's 11.2%. Now keep in mind, here's our income. It's $59,356. It was $55. It's gone up $4,000. That's inflation on our expenses. We're still pulling all this out of the IRA. Once we get to the Roth IRA later in life, our taxes are going to come down quite a bit. Okay? So we go to retirement. And you can see, look at this. We're out of money at 94 years old. This is a pretty good scenario, right? We've got spendable assets of $450,000. We have a home of $250,000. And our rate of return that we need to never run out of money is 4.44%. Remember, we're running this at 3.78. So let's go to like 80. At 80 years old, she's got $152,000 in spendable assets. We've got a house worth $306,000, which we can easily do a reverse mortgage, or what they call a home equity conversion mortgage. We could sell the house, whatever. And again, we're out of money at 94 years old. Here's our expenses at 94, $8,000 a month. Here's our net monthly income, Social Security and taxes withheld. Are we going to have $8,000 a month in expenses at a 94? Probably not. But keep in mind, she's single, so long-term care is something we have to consider. So when we go through this, here's the question we're asking. Where should we take our retirement income from first? So for these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you see there's a -4, -4, -4, -4. What that is us pulling the retirement income out of her investments each month. So she's taking money out of her retirement investments. So the question becomes, right, we're taking Social Security at 67. Can we extend this if we take Social Security at a different age? So let's look at that. Let's go to Social Security Start. So look, the software is telling us to take Social Security at 70. 70. And look what that does. It extends her life from 94 to 97. So let's look at that real quick. Let's go look at this. Okay. Here we go. We're out at 97. Our rate of return's come down. But look at where our assets go. And this is why you can't always look at software and say, I'm going to go just by what the software says. Because here's what would concern me as a human, right? AI is great. Software is awesome, but you also have to use a human mind sometimes to look at it and go, does this make sense? Listen, I'm a Rays fan, Tampa Bay Rays baseball fan. They use analytics better than anyone in baseball. And analytics is simply looking at a player, looking at their stats on a computer and making a decision based on the analytics. But let me tell you something. There's been decisions that the Rays have made, that Kevin Cash, the manager, has made, and based on the analytics, you're like, that makes sense. But based on how the player's performing currently, leave him in the game, Blake Snell, in the World Series. All right. So if we go to 70, here's Social Security, $4,158. Yeah, that's 124%, but look at her assets. We've drained everything to $25,356 outside of the house. Now, she starts to grow her money because she's basically using Social Security, but goodness gracious, that does not make me feel comfortable as a financial advisor, right? That doesn't make you feel comfortable, does it? All right, so let's go back to the current scenario. And let's go to Social Security and let's move it up to 62. So let's start taking Social Security first. Now, obviously she's retiring at 60. We got to use our retirement investments for 2 years before Social Security kicks on. But let's look at taking Social Security early and what does that do to our overall plan? Everything else is staying the same, except we're going to take Social Security early. We go to retirement. Okay, we're out at 92. So 92, was it 94 and then 97? Now, look at our investments. Let's go to 80. At 80, we've got $248,950. I feel a lot better taking Social Security a little earlier, even though we're running out of money earlier at this 80 to 84 range, which unfortunately is when most people pass away. We have more spendable assets, which are going to protect us with long-term care. So in her case, we might be talking about, hey, it might make sense to take Social Security a little earlier based on just you being single and wanting to protect your long-term care. So again, all these factors are things that we're looking at when we're trying to make the decision, where should I take my retirement income from first? All right, now let's look at a married couple. Let's ask the question, can I retire as a married couple, and where should my retirement income come from? Can I retire at 60 with $225,000 saved for retirement? Where should I take my retirement income from first? That's the next strategy that we're going to look at today. I've got Frank and Karen Bankerton. They're from Kentucky. Go Wildcats. And they are asking the question, can I retire and where should I take my retirement income from first? So let's look at this. So Frank and Karen are a client of mine. This is a couple that we've shown a few scenarios with, but I love their scenario because it's going to give you some clear direction on when and where you should take your retirement income from first. Now they're both 60 years old, okay? And they live in the great state where I grew up, the great state of Kentucky. Now they're both retired at 60, and we're looking first at taking Social Security at 62. So when the question is raised, when or where should my retirement income come from first, for them, we're going to look at Social Security first. Now for 2 years, they're going to take money out of their retirement investments, and then we're going to use Social Security for the majority of their spending, or we're going to try to at least, all right? No pension, so we basically just have Social Security. From an asset standpoint, Frank has a traditional IRA with $125,000 in it. Karen has a Roth IRA with $25,000 in it. Karen also has a traditional IRA with $50,000 in it. This was a 401k that we had rolled over. And they have a joint account at the United Kingdom, the University of Kentucky Federal Credit Union for $25,000. Now they have a home that's worth $350,000. So we're asking the question, can I retire with $225,000 saved for retirement? Now the portfolio weighted average we're going to use is 4.67%. Now we're going to project out a 5% rate of return. The reason we're going to use 5% instead of 4% is because Frank and Karen wanted to project out 5%. They're a little bit more growth minded with their investments, not necessarily like super growth minded, right? The market's averaged 8% over the last 50 years with inflation. So we're looking at 5% as half of basically what the market has done over the last 50 years. It's tilted just a little bit more towards growth. And you're also going to see why we're going to have to do that. Now, from an expense standpoint, we've got $3,000 in baseline expenses, and we have travel expenses of $416 a month. Now we're breaking the travel expenses down on a monthly basis, but if you multiply that by 12, it's right about $5,000 a month, or $5,000 a year is what they want to spend on travel. Now keep in mind, we're going to keep inflation for travel at 3.27% and their baseline expenses at 3.27%. So you guys understand with travel, to fly on an airplane from Tampa to Lexington or Tampa to Vegas, the tickets go up every year. Jet fuel goes up every year. Peanuts on the plane if you fly Allegiant, because you got to pay for everything. I think they just duct tape your seat to the airplane. They're like, good luck, see you later. That costs more money every year. There's inflation on travel. It's the same on your baseline, right? Baseline expenses are like your utilities, your food. There's inflation on that, right? Coke today, right? We're in the South, so we drink Coca-Cola. Sorry for all my Pepsi people up north, but Coke in the South and Coke in general costs more today than it did 2 or 3 years ago. All right, so that's inflation. Now, from a tax standpoint, we're married filing jointly. So if we look at this, we're in a very low tax bracket. So taxes are not something that we're overly concerned for Frank and Karen. The real concern is, when should I take my retirement income, or where should I take it from? Social Security, retirement investments. So let's go to retirement. And if you see the projection, so here's the first 2 years where we're having to pull money out of our retirement investments. Here's Social Security kicking on. And essentially, our money lasts till 91 years old, which is a pretty good scenario. We still have the house over here that's worth $479,000 at 91. Obviously, mortality tables put us somewhere between 80 and 85. They're getting extended a little bit more. I like to talk about that because as our health care gets better in the sense of keeping people alive, and obviously quality of life is important. And you know, as we're healthier today than we were 20, 30, 40 years ago, go read. I love history. Go read some of the health recommendations from our government in the early 1900s, like eat a stick of butter. That's good for you every day. I wonder who was paying them to say that, right? And so our health has gotten better today. We understand that exercise and sleep and eating right. And so we may live longer. And if you're 60, you might live longer than your parents lived. And so we got to think about that. So we're looking at taking Social Security at 62. And the reason we're doing that is because they have a lower amount saved for retirement. We have $225,000 saved for retirement. If we extend this 62 down to, say, 67, 70, we're really going to be pushing the envelope on draining these spendable assets. And so we have to ask ourselves, we go back to income, and we can easily just kind of look at this and we can say, okay, what if we took it 64 for both of them? Let's go 2 more years. So instead of 62, we're going to take it 64. We go to retirement, and look at this, we're now down at 86. So we've lost 5 years, or 5 years of retirement income because we tried to delay Social Security. A lot of times people will call me and they'll say, hey Drew, I was reading this magazine or I was watching this YouTube video and this guy, he's a CPA, he told me to take Social Security at 67 or 70 because that makes the most sense for everybody. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I don't know without looking at your scenario. And so what if we take it at full retirement age for both of you? What's that going to look like? Here's full retirement age, 67 for Frank, 67 for Karen. You can see 2470 for Frank, 2200 for Karen. We go to retirement. Look at that. If they had listened, they'd be out of money at 65 years old. Like, that's quick. Like, you back at work. We don't want that. And so the easiest thing that we like to look at is we go to this and we say, okay, let's look at Social Security start. And let's make a better decision on when we should claim Social Security. And for them, the software is telling us optimizations at 62, which is what we already had said. So let's go back, let's adjust this, 62, 62, save both. So now we're back out at 91, which makes me feel really good. Now there are some things in this scenario that maybe I would like to see a little bit better, but let me show you some positives first. Rate of return needed to avoid a shortfall is 5.83%. That means if they make 5.83% on their investments for the rest of their life, they'll never run out of money. That's a possibility. I don't think the market's going to average 2 and 3% for the next 10 or 20 years. It could average 5 to 6%, which puts us right where we need to be, okay? And with fixed income interest higher today, we can get guaranteed interest at a better level, whether that's on a treasury bond or a municipal bond or a corporate bond or annuity, structured note, whatever, we can actually get some of this guaranteed interest a lot higher now than we could 5-10 years ago. So we don't have to just earn this 5.83% in the market. These people are very much growth minded. I've had to kind of pull the reins back on them a little bit because I'm like, hey, we can't go that fast, because if we go too fast, you might have sequence of return risk. Sequence of return risk is essentially that you go into retirement and you step into it and the market falls immediately. So your 225 becomes 200 or 150, and you're pulling out retirement income on a monthly basis and the market continues to fall. And so you're like trying to stay afloat and the market's doing this. We don't want that. We don't want sequence of return risk within our retirement assets. And let me show you what that looks like with the software. So for them, here, look, here's sequence of return risk, right? 2023, market's down 6%. 2024, market's down 6.82. 2025, we're down about a point. What does this do to our retirement? This is what they call a Monte Carlo scenario. We've just broken it out. And in their case, it puts them out at 89 versus 91. Not too bad, actually. Not so bad there. Let's generate another one. This one, we've got 4 years of sequence of return risk. Now what does that do? We're out at 91 again, essentially. So we go back up here. Let's generate it again. Okay, 4 years again of a bad market, generating returns. Now we're out at 87 and 91. So you just want to look at all of these possibilities when you're building out your retirement plan. You want to make sure that you're covering all your bases. We don't want to go into something, we don't want to go blindly into our retirement, right? The blind leading the blind, you basically fall into a ditch. And so we've got to look at all these different factors. I'm hoping and praying for them that we stay on track, but I don't know what the future holds. But for them, when should I take my retirement income, or where should I take it from first? It makes sense to take it from Social Security at 62, because that's going to be the best bang for their buck. All right. I hope this video has helped you. I hope this has helped in your retirement planning. God bless. Bye-bye.